Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Building Wealth Summit. I am so excited to be here today, and I'd like to, before I go any further, just make sure that everybody is getting me loud and clear. So I have got the comments over here on my right-hand side, so please, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of a hello. And I thought maybe on top of that, maybe let me know where you're joining me from today for the Building Wealth Summit. And boy, do we have a summit coming in for you guys today. It is a action-packed lineup of speakers. The time that the speakers have put into the presentation for today has been exceptional, and I have seen the amazing knowledge that you're going to get from Paul and from Chris over the coming days. It's nice to see a few of those comments coming in. Good morning, everybody. Again, let me know where you're coming from. It's always nice to hear where you guys are joining me from. It's always cool hearing, we got a lot of people that join in from Australia, New Zealand, and sometimes even the rest of the world as well, which is always really quite exciting. Awesome. I can see a whole lot of comments coming in there. Whangarei, very good. Melbourne, a couple of brilliant. Auckland, well, we got an interesting day here in Auckland. Went for a bit of a jog this morning. It was windy and it got a bit of rain and all sorts happening, but it is great to be here to be able to bring you the Building Wealth Summit. My name is Jono Frankle, and I'll be your host for today's summit. And I feel like it's my obligation as the host of the summit to make sure that I really get to know who is on the other side of that camera. So what I would like to do, my next question is, I'd like to hear from you guys. How many of you are part of the Wealth Mentor family already? You've potentially seen myself speak or Paul speak or any of the other Wealth Mentor team. Would love to hear from you. Say hello in terms of, part of the family. And then on top of that, I'd like to hear from all of you that potentially haven't heard any of us at Wealth Mentor speak before. First experience of Wealth Mentor. And I think for you guys, something in the comments, something along the lines of, oh yeah, bring it on, or something along those lines, because I think you're going to really enjoy what we have lined up for you over the next few hours. It is going to be an exceptional summit. Now, for you guys, in terms of communication, we do have the chat, and I can see the chat is going crazy. It is awesome to see that, all throwing your comments in there. Much appreciate that. I do really enjoy the comments because it's a changed world. I'm staring at a camera. And for many years when I started my presenting, it was always standing in front of people and you're getting the energy. So having the comments coming through really is great to see that. So thank you very much. We do have the Wealth Mentor team on the chat as well. So if there's any questions or queries, throw them in there and the team will make sure that they look after you. As well as that, we do, if you have any questions or anything that you need sorted out, the office email is office@wealthmentor.co.nz. Tech team, if we can get that dropping in below so you guys can get that email address, please. If there's anything, let us know and we'll make sure that we get that sorted for you guys. There we go. So on the tech team, we got Nimesh, the man himself, who always makes things look awesome. I mean, look at the setup that he's managed to get for us today. So big ups to Nimesh for that work, and we'll be making sure that we can put forward the best possible summit for you guys today. Right, time to rip into it. Before we rip into it, but have a little bit of caffeine. So leading up to the summit, it was really quite cool to see the amount of people that took up the different ticket options that we've got for the summit. I was over the moon with the registrations for this. I mean, we're talking about 200 plus people who are out there looking to improve their situation through building wealth through property. And I think you've definitely come to a fantastic place. We did have 3 ticket options. For those of you that are joining us live today, no charge whatsoever. I mean, how much value are you getting for no charge? It's pretty good return on investment for that time. The next one we did have the option for a ticket for life. And I'd just like to reiterate what that ticket for life option is, just for those of you that potentially are looking to change over to that ticket for life option. So what you do get with the ticket for life is you get access to today's recording for life. That there is value in itself, because you're going to get the option to listen to Chris and Paul. I mean, later on, we're going to hear from Chris, who's done some exceptional trades that I'm not going to give too much away just yet, but you can re-look at it and have a look at some of the learnings and watch any of the stuff that you've learned from today. That will be yours for life. And I think here, a massive bit of value is going to be the live Q&A that we're going to do on Wednesday night with myself and Chris and Paul. And I think you guys can't value for $29 the fact to go and have your questions answered by multi-millionaire investors, developers, and get yourself up to that level. So for a small fee, it really is a fantastic investment. Now, we did also have the ticket for good. Now, this is something which I think is extremely, I guess I don't find the right words for it. I'm quite passionate about the option of what we have with the ticket for good. So for the ticket for good, we donate to charity. All the 100% of the proceeds go through to charity. The charity that we chose for the Building Wealth Summit is and I always struggle to say this word, I'm going to do my best here, Gawad Kalanga. And I reckon the Wealth Mentor team chose this one because they knew how much trouble I would have actually having to say that name. But anyway, that is the charity that we will go to be donating to. And it has been an exceptional uptake of people jumping on the ticket for good. And just to give you a bit of an idea as to what that does. So it's about empowering communities. So what the charity does is it trains up mentors, mainly in the building trade, to then be able to help communities and change the way that communities live. It is starting raining like crazy in Auckland. I'm not sure if you guys are getting that coming through. Hopefully you can still hear me loud and clear. It is hosing down here. Anyway, talking about hosing down, let's get into what we're going to be covering off today. Now, again, I understand that there is over 200 investors that are going to be watching this. And we really wanted to make sure that we catered for a range of investors on all the different topics that we will be covering off. So I believe that here is going to be some essential things that will change the way that you invest, no matter what level of investor you're currently at. We're going to be covering off the different investment strategies that we've got within property investment, the calculations that go alongside building wealth and renovations, as well as that creating equity, and also the concept of hoping for equity. This is always something that is quite dear to me, and I'm going to cover that off in a few minutes' time, as the concept of how do we create equity compared to hoping that we get equity. Then we're going to get to some of the really exciting topics, and I think this is something you're going to take a lot away from today, is ways in adding value, ways that we can increase the value of our property, and what we can do once we've added the value to the property. This is going to be something that we'll definitely be talking a lot about today. We've got a couple of tradies on the show. I don't claim to be a tradie at all. If anybody has seen my experience of renovating on national television, I made a complete fool of myself. But hey, you don't need to be a great renovator. You just need to manage your team. And we'll talk a little bit about that when working with different tradies. But we've got Paul and Chris, both with tradie backgrounds, who have definitely transitioned over to the investing side of things. And then renovation timelines. How do we actually plan out our renovations when we get into building our wealth? Now, I mentioned their names, and boy, do we have a lineup of speakers for you today. I mean, look at those faces right there. And I'd like to start off. You're going to hear from me for the first hour or so, and I'm going to be giving you guys as much knowledge as I can. One of the things I'm excited to share with you guys today is I've come up with the 5 fundamentals to building wealth, and I think that is going to be really exciting to be able to share that concept with you. But we've got Paul and Chris. Chris, I'm going to start with him. He's going to be joining us a little bit later on. Chris, in his last 3 deals, actually, it's not even his last 3 deals. We just picked 3 random deals that we've got. And the cool thing is, when we look at these 3 deals, I worked out the average profit on his 3 deals that we're going to be sharing with you today as just under $300,000 of profit. Yeah, you heard that right. Just under $300,000 of profit on the 3 deals that we're going to talk through today with Chris and go through the details as to how he was able to do that. This man has gone from working as a laborer to now running a successful trading business, and we're going to talk about how he was able to do that. And then we've got Paul. Many people out in the community know Paul because of how much he does for his community. I think I'm always in absolute awe at what this man does, at what this man says, and the energy and the absolute desire to help and change people's lives. I think you guys are going to absolutely love the time that you get to hear from Paul. He's going to show you how he has been able to change from building properties for other people to building a sensational portfolio and continuing to do that, as well as the fact that he is making such huge influences in the community. Again, it leaves me in awe every time I hear him speak. He brings such great energy, and I'm sure you guys will get a lot out of hearing from the man himself, Paul. I'd like to start with a little bit of quote. And I chose this one because I've actually been listening to a little bit of John Maxwell lately on a podcast. I'd recommend jumping on and having a wee listen to it. But I think this reigns true for what we've got lined up for you today, and especially in the way that Paul approaches things. The best way to add value to yourself is by adding value to other people. And that's something that we're big on at Wealth Mentor. And we're big on trying to ensure that we can show people ways to create their financial freedom. For those of you that don't know, Wealth Mentor, we're situated in Parnell, just at the top of Parnell Road. That's our office there. It's a beautiful old villa that we're based in. And if you're ever driving through top of Parnell, keep a lookout for us. You can't really miss us. But I think for Wealth Mentor, some of the things that we've been able to do, some of the things we've been able to share and change people's lives has been a big part of who we are and what we are. And I think when you have a look at the sensational results or the media appearances that Wealth Mentor has had over the years, I think the proof is in the pudding when you look at the amazing amount of lives changed over the last decade of Wealth Mentor. My involvement in Wealth Mentor goes back around 5 to 6 years, and I'll go into a little bit more detail around that. But the key element for Wealth Mentor is the concept is that we are here to educate people. We are passionate about educating people. We're passionate about showing people a different way that they can create freedom for themselves. I want you to pay special attention to what it says just under the logo there, Wealth Mentor. That's our tagline. This is something that has been recently come in to our company. The tagline, making wealth accessible to all. And that there is something that is really powerful. And I believe it is our mission and our goal to be able to make wealth accessible to all. And you guys jumping on today, we're going to hopefully show you, actually not even hopefully, we will be showing you ways that you can continually build your wealth over the next few years so that you can hit those financial goals that you deserve. Right, my favorite subject. Nice jacket I'm wearing in that photo. I thought I'd keep it consistent and wear the same jacket today. Now, a little bit about who I am. So I am an investor. I believe that my first and primary and main goal and everything I live for is my family. I've got 2 beautiful daughters. They are the absolute apple of everything I do, and everything I do is so that I can create a better life for them. I mentioned before that my first I had a bit of an appearance on a reality TV show. So just for those of you who haven't watched it, thank you for not watching me on Our First Home, a TV show. And that was actually my first property transaction. And that was my first taster where I went, holy crap, property is a great vehicle for me to create a better life for me, for my family. It's a great vehicle for me to get to choose to do what I deserve to do with my time. It's a great vehicle for me to ensure that my family can live the life that they deserve. My journey through Wealth Mentor has gone from a student to becoming a successful investor, mainly through trading initially, then into buy and hold. I then moved on to becoming a mentor within the Wealth Mentor family. And then I kept stepping it up. And now I am the managing director of Wealth Mentor. And I hope that the values that I have in life are brought across to the company. Very much, it's very big on my agenda that we want to ensure that we build amazing communities. For those of you that know me, I love having a whole lot of friends and making friends with everybody. So we want to make sure that we build these amazing communities. And I think it's very obvious by the comments coming in from a few of our Wealth Mentor family jumping in there. It's really cool to hear that. I mentioned before that my journey through investing started through the reality TV show. So things kind of transformed from that moment into going in and learning from Wealth Mentor, trading property for many years, as well as starting to build up a buy and hold portfolio. A lot of that as well doing with joint ventures and angel investors and using other people's money. scary concept when you don't understand it, but when you start to get the concept and start to have the confidence in it and realize that when you're working with other people's money, you're doing them a favor. I'll explain what that exactly means in a few slides' time. But the other passion for me, really, and it comes down to the fact that by creating financial freedom, by creating passive income, it gives you the opportunity to do the things you love. And one of the things I do love, family first, you can see that at the top there, but I do love my sport. Big sports fan. I love watching everything. I'm really excited about All Blacks tomorrow. But golf for me, playing golf, going fishing, all those things is something that really is powerful for me. Now, I'd like you guys to take a moment and just consider this. Nims, can we go full slide for this one, please? And I'd like you guys to consider, what does wealth mean to you? When the clicker decides to click over, there we go. Oops. What does wealth mean to you? It's something, if any of you guys have caught the coffee catch-ups that I do. I run a coffee catch-up, which is a daily catch-up with different individuals. And it's a question I always ask them, because for everybody, wealth means something different. I'd like you to consider what wealth means to you. Does it mean those flash cars? Does it mean that nice watch there on private jets? Does it include the beautiful home? I'd like to share what wealth means to me. For me, first and foremost, like I said before, it's my family. There's my beautiful kids and my wife, Karen. But I think a lot of the values have been passed down from my parents. You can see them down the bottom right there. When we moved back to New Zealand from South Africa, my parents sacrificed a lot. Those moments that you realize that the sacrifice that you make for your family is second to none. And I will make sure that I create the best life I possibly can. One of the most powerful things, back on me please, Dinesh. One of the most powerful things I believe that I've been able to do through my property investing journey is being able to buy properties for my parents. I didn't use my own money. I showed them how they could leverage the equity that they had in their home in order to buy property in New Zealand, creating a passive income, and hopefully and definitely changing their lives. For those of you as well, you can see that fishing photo. I do love myself some fly fishing, and I use that photo, and no photo of a fish there, because I think it's about the experience for me. Yes, I do normally catch a few fish, but it's definitely not high on the agenda. It's experience, and it's moments like that that really resonate. You can see that the beard was a little bit ginger. It was definitely the sun that was going through it to get that sort of color coming through on the beard. And lastly, I'm going to talk about that photo in the top right corner, because for me, I love educating people. That there is a photo in our studio at Wealth Mentor. We have a fantastic studio there. I'm coming to you today from my house in East Auckland, but that is our studio where we will be presenting a lot of our events, including our very famous cash flow masterclass. But really, I think when I come back to it, the knowledge that you can gain can start to change those people's lives around you. I mentioned what I was able to do for my parents in terms of equity and being able to leverage it. So my next question for all of you out there, do you currently own any property? Please jump into the comments. Let me know. Do you own property? You don't have to tell me how many. I know I can few of those names there that have some serious numbers, but do you own property? All right, that's my first question. My next question is, do you have the situation where your property is potentially grown in value? Do you have that situation where potentially in Auckland or New Zealand, or actually anywhere? Why do I say Auckland? Because to be fair, we've been looking at sensational growth through New Zealand. And I have my theories as to why that growth is, and I'll share that in a little while, and also why I believe that we're probably not going to see that slow. But do you have equity in these properties? Well, let's look at it now. If we look at what property values have done over the last 30 years, they've doubled every 7 to 10 years. You can have a look at this price index. Look at that growth. That's 30 years worth of growth. Isn't that sensational? So now let's have a look at it from a numbers standpoint. So let's say, for example, Now, Mesh, if we can come on me, I'm going to test out my markers here. Thank you. Let's say that you were able to buy a property for 800,000. Is that coming through nice and clear for you guys? I might try a different color actually. That looks a little bit. $800,000. That's a bit better. Yeah, awesome. Cool. If you were able to purchase your property for $800,000, now generally what we're looking at is about a 20% deposit often when we look at own occupied. So if we had an $800,000 property and we had to put a 20% deposit in, who's got their calculators ready for me? 20% deposit on $800,000. $160 deposit. All right. Now we've seen some pretty crazy growth in the last few years, probably more than 25%. But for the purpose of this, we're going to say that our $800,000 property is now worth $1 million, which is probably pretty relevant in the New Zealand market and probably in some areas of Australia as well. Now on this property, you've got now worth $1 million. You actually owe $640K to the bank. At an 80% deposit, at an 80% lending, you owe $640 to the $40,000 to the bank. You've now got a property worth $1 million. But the bank is willing to lend you 80% to the value of your property. So really, the bank's willing to lend you $800,000. So what we then have a look at is that we've got a difference here of $160,000 of equity. Next question. What's this equity actually doing for you right now? This is something I'm big on and I talk a lot of my students around this as well. You've got $160,000 of equity sitting there. What's it doing for you? Really, if you think about it logically, all you're doing is saving you interest on that money by not using that equity. What if we could say, let's take that money and go out there and purchase a property using it? This here is a key element that we're going to talk about today. Starting to look at what equity we've got and can we leverage that. And then I'm going to add to it where I'm actually going to show you guys how we can look to force the appreciation in order to make sure that we create the equity, which then gives us the ability to ensure that we're continually growing our portfolio. I saw there that the presentation jumped across my face, so I thought I'd better move out of the way because I'd hate for you guys to miss out. Right, let's have a look now at that concept. So when we are able to leverage the property, we can take this equity, we can leverage it, and we can buy more property. Now, depending on what the loan-to-value ratio, I've talked about LVR, loan-to-value ratio. Depending on what the LVR is, it's going to depend on how much you can spend on your next investment property. I will get to that very shortly. But really, leverage is the key element as to why property outperforms every other asset class when it comes to property, when it comes to investing. So my next question for you guys out there is, when it comes to investing, what type of investor are you? Now, I think the key element when it comes to what type of investor are you is depending on what sort of mindset you've got when you go into your investment. This here is the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant. This is all about what type of investor you are, how you make your money. For those of you that haven't seen it before, and I'm sure most of you have because this is a really common thing, we've got E and S, which is employee and self-employed, and we've got B and I, which is business owner and investor. I think the best way for me to show you guys exactly how you can transition from employee, self-employed over to business owner, investor is to show you. And we have got two of the most impressive investors who have transferred from that employee, self-employed side of the quadrant over to the right-hand side to the business owner investor. So when we jump on to Chris and Paul, take note of how they speak. Take note about how they go about their business, ensure that they are starting to trade their money for money and other people's time for money. That's the key concept. Think about it. Do you want to continually trade your time for money? I certainly don't. I'd rather have my money working for me and have other people that are not willing to learn, educate themselves, and grow as individuals, leverage their time, ensure that I am growing my family's financial security. Coming back to what type of investor are you? I think this here really comes down to the mindset. And a lot of the time, and I guess this is kind of reliant on what has been happening in the current market in New Zealand, we have a lot of buy and hope investors. This being because what we've seen over the last few years is sensational growth in New Zealand. And with the amount of money still being printed or borrowed by the New Zealand government, I don't see that stopping because asset prices can only go one way. But a buy and hope investor for me is somebody who buys based on emotion. They buy based on if they like the feeling of that property. They buy based on whether that property is nicely located in a street that they can drive past on their way to work because they got to go work because that property is not making them money most of the time as well. Buy and hope investor doesn't have any plans. We will show you how you can create a plan, figure out where you want to get to and have a plan to get there, no matter what your starting point. We work with clients at all levels, and this is something that we're very proud of to be able to show you guys. And that comes back down to generally the buy and hope investors are uneducated investors. They don't understand. They're not willing to give up time in order to learn to get better results. You guys sitting behind on that other side of that camera have given up the time, and you will reap the rewards by joining us and making sure that you educate yourselves to get the best out of your investment properties. Buy and hope investors are really crystal ball investors. They're hoping the market goes well. And to be fair, if the market doesn't go very well, they're in trouble because they haven't planned and they're not buying the right types of properties. And at the end of the day, like I said before, we're talking about crystal ball speculators. I grabbed the latest stats in terms of growth in New Zealand. Now, I know that that's probably a little bit tough to see, so I've managed to zoom in for you guys, and hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer for you guys to see the latest stats and growth. And this probably comes back to the concept of, do you currently own a property? Well, you've probably got some awesome equity there that you need to look at leveraging into purchasing more property and ensuring that you continually grow your portfolio and your passive cash flow. I mean, the numbers there are quite staggering in the growth. That there is thanks to the COVID recovery and a lot of money being pumped into the economy. It also is very, very much driven by demand. Paul is right on his finger on the pulse when it comes to the demand and the numbers in terms of what is happening in the New Zealand market, in terms of the demand, the shortage of property, and he will cover off a lot of details in terms of that when you hear from him a little bit later on. But let's have a look at what a professional investor is all about. A professional investor is always upskilling. There is a reason that some of our best investors are sitting there commenting on this summit. They are continually upskilling, continually growing, continually learning. There is a plan in place. You understand what you are looking to achieve. You have a clear goal, a clear plan in front of you to where you want to get to in terms of your investing future. You surround yourself with a professional team, you can make money in any market. That there is powerful. Make money in any market. If we see a shift in the market, all these little small off the plan houses that have been purchased, I have my worries. Make sure you are buying. You're able to buy no matter what the market is doing. Different strategies will come in when it comes to this, and I'll cover off a little bit of that soon. But buying based on numbers. The last summit, if you did catch it, was all about numbers. You will always be buying property based on numbers to ensure that it stacks up. Again, this is the opposite of buying on emotion. Buying on numbers is ensuring that the property stacks up and is high cash flow. I'll show you very soon how we're going to work out our cash flow calculation. And lastly, surround yourself with experts. Surround yourself with a network of people that are out there doing it just like you want to. Have mentors in life that you are looking to grow to, someone who is a couple of steps ahead of you that you can continually grow and grow towards. There's a little phrase that I came up with a couple of weeks ago. And I think it really reigns true in the current market. Because when it comes to buying property, it's essential that you're buying property with a plan. We're not out there buying off the plan. We need to make sure that we have a plan. I'm not saying that buying new properties is wrong. Don't get me wrong. Well, that was a few wrongs in there, wasn't it? Buying off the plan or brand new properties has its place in certain portfolios. It is essential that you understand the process of going through your building wealth, building passive cash flow, and building your portfolio through a staged element to ensure that you're buying the correct properties at the right time. This is going to ensure that it gives you the ability to buy multiple properties in the same year. We're talking about buying 3, 4, 5, 6 properties in the same year rather than waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 years to buy the next property. This is going to be very important, and I think that we're going to put a lot of these concepts through to you today that are going to ensure that you understand why it is so important to have a plan in place rather than just going out there and buying any property. I am just about to get into the 5 fundamentals to building wealth. But before I do that, I'd just like to share with you guys the next event that we do have coming up. It is our Cash Flow Masterclass. The dates are up on the screen there for you guys. It really is a sensational 3-day event for you guys to invest less than $500 a day to come and spend time with sensational investors to take your investing to a whole nother level. I believe that there is nothing better on the market than this Cash Flow Masterclass. It was my starting point. It was a starting point of so many of our amazing students out there doing sensational things. For Wealth Mentor, when Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad came to Australasia, it was all rolled out through Wealth Mentor. We are all about educating. You come to that event and I guarantee you will learn more than you ever thought possible in terms of property investing. It is sensational. It is all about educating you guys so you can become the best investor possible. Awesome. Let's get into what I believe are the 5 fundamentals when building wealth. Number 1, understand your numbers. When it comes to investing, there are so many different calculations out there that you need to get on top of. There's so many different elements that we need to make sure that we are aware of when it comes to buying properties, depending on your strategy. The one that we hear a lot of is all about cash flow. Understanding our cash flow calculation is vital. Cash flow is really a term that is thrown around within business. If you are any sort of business owner, you have a side hustle of business, it's all about cash flow. It's all about ensuring that you have more profit than expenses. So it always fascinates me when you see these adverts around cash flowing properties that you can buy off Facebook. It fascinates me that the numbers can stack up and people can say that they're cash flow positive properties. Because for me, in any business, when you look at cash flow, you need to ensure that you've taken all your expenses into account. And often when we look at some of these properties that you are able to buy on Facebook, sometimes most of the expenses are not there. And often the expense that's not there is the mortgage. You need to be paying interest. It's really important that when you work out your cash flow calculation, that you're working out that the property is going to cash flow no matter what your LVR is. Coming back to the LVR, loan to value ratio. Now, I'd like to quickly share with you a basic understanding as to how a cash flow calculation will look. So what we can see here is the cash flow calculation. Income less expenses equals cash flow. You can see there that we take our annual rent to ensure that we are getting all the income associated to that property. We're then taking off all expenses associated with that property. The interest that you're paying on your loan. You will work that out and make sure that the property is still cash flowing. We've got the word there, MOE, M-O-E. What that stands for is your monthly operating expenses. Make sure you write that one down, monthly operating expenses. For the purpose of this simple equation, all right, we are looking at MOE covering off our insurance, covering off our rates, and covering off our maintenance. In In your advanced cash flow calculation, you are going to break these elements down and ensure that you have specific details for every single one. For the purpose of a cash flow calculation, you can use a percentage. Depending on the type of property, we can work anywhere between 10 and 15% of your annual rent in terms of a monthly operating expense. We also then will account for a management fee. I don't know about you, but I will not go and deal with a broken toilet at my property. I have got property managers that are going to handle anything, and I will always ensure that I account for a management fee. Once we've taken that whole cash flow calculation into account, we need to ensure that the property is cash flowing. Now, when you go through your plan, depending on what it is that you're looking to achieve will depend on what sort of cash flow you're looking at. But just on average, you can look at, at least say a $300,000 property, you'd probably be working to a minimum of around about $500 per month of passive cash flow coming from the property. That's your minimum. I've seen some students bang out one deal that's paying them over $100,000 of passive cash flow. One deal paying someone over $100,000 of passive cash flow. That's more than most people earn. If you can learn how to establish cash flow properties, that's going to give you the ability to really make sure you create your financial freedom. Through the summit and through the learnings of today, we'll show you guys how you can also create cash flow, how you can create leverage, how you can create equity in order to make sure that your cash flow is growing as much as possible. Hopefully that cash flow calculation has given you a bit of context in terms of how you make sure that your properties are making you an income. The next calculation that you'll hear a lot of is gross yield. Gross yield is a nice simple calculation in terms of establishing how hard or how much rent you're making on a property compared to the purchase price. Nice simple equation, annual rent divided by purchase price gives you an indicative calculation as to how the property rents compares to the purchase price. Now the thing with the gross yield is it does not take into account your expenses. That there is a net yield calculation and a whole nother calculation zone. But this is a great way to do your initial research on whether a property is worth investigating further. Here's a slide that one of my team put together. I'd like you to go through, if you can see that, we might need to go full screen on that one so you guys can see those numbers there. And I'd like you guys to quickly work out the gross yield for me on these calculations. All right, let's start off with the blue house. So we've got a purchase price there on the blue house of $360,000, but it's renting for $720 a week. And your rent divided by purchase price times 100. All right. If we can quickly have a look at those gross yields, you'll start to understand what sort of gross yield is going to give you some really positive, powerful cash flow. While you guys are working that out, a nice, quick, simple calculation that you can use in your head is, on average, if your property rents for double what the purchase price is, like this blue house right here, which was purchased for $360 and rents for $720, I realize that there's a $100,000 in there, but we've got a $360 and a $720. We're generally talking about a 10% gross yield. If it's on par, so you're buying it for $300,000 and it rents for $300 a week, you're generally then looking at about a 5% gross yield. We will teach you how to buy or create properties that are gross yield plus of 6 to 8%, and sometimes even into double figures, depending on the type of property that you are purchasing. And I'll show you a little bit more details on that one. 11%. Yes, that's correct, Jennifer. Thank you very much for throwing that in there. Appreciate that. So I think you guys get the gist, and I'll move on from that. You guys have done a great job on calculating your gross yields. It's something you'd probably want to have a look at your current portfolio and have a look at what sort of yields you're getting on your property. Are they worth you holding on to? Is there a better place for you to put your money? Let's have a look at those numbers. So we had 10.4 on the blue house, 4.7 on pink, and a 6.4 on the green. I'm pleased that someone actually wrote what color house they are there, because for those of you that know me, I'm colorblind, and I probably would have said the blue house, the pink house, and the brown house. But anyway, we've got the blue, the pink, and the green house there, and the gross yields associated to it. So make sure that you guys get on top of that calculation. A calculation that I'm extremely passionate about. And I think, again, anyone that's in business needs to ensure that your cash flow, your ROI is something that you are extremely, extremely on top of. You need to understand how hard your money is working for you, no matter where you're putting your money, whether it's property, whether it's shares, whether it's crypto, or whether you're putting it in the bank. ROI is a nice, simple calculation. ROI is taking your profit divided by money in the deal. For those of you that have money in the bank, on that there, we've got ANZ offering 1.2%. Most of the banks offering 1.2%. The concept of actually putting your money into the bank and earning 1.2%, less tax, and then you take into account inflation, probably have your money going backwards. Isn't that a scary thought? We hear from Robert Kiyosaki a lot. He always says that saving is for losers. He's pretty upfront about it, blunt about it. But saving and putting your money in the bank is generally going to be going backwards. It's a scary thought. How hard is your money actually working for you? What if I told you that your money should be paying you 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%? What if I told you that your money could actually create infinite return on investment? Suddenly now we start to perk up and we go, hang on, that 1.2% that the bank's offering us is actually pretty shithouse, to be fair. And that's not really fair. We want to be ensuring that our money is working as hard as possible for us so we do not have to work as hard as possible. Let's have a look again at that ROI calculation. I might actually just pull this one off. Remember these numbers for later on for your team. Hopefully that wasn't too loud coming through the speaker there. So, profit divided by money in the deal equals ROI. All right, profit divided by money in the deal. So the bank is offering you 1.2%. Obviously, if you can get your money into something that's working a little bit harder, your ROI starts to go up. The next thing I'd like to show you guys is the concept of ROI versus an annualized ROI. And this is a key calculation, especially when I'm going to be introducing you to Chris later on and showing you some of his deals. The annualized ROI is a powerful, powerful way to look at how hard your money is working based on an annual basis. To put it into context, think of it this way. If you had put your money into the bank and you're offered 1.2%, you put $100,000 into the bank and you leave it in there for a year, you're making $1,200, 1.2%. But you put it in there for 6 months. Essentially, you're now getting $600. So 0.6%. So the annualized ROI on your money in the bank is 1.2%. But what about if we have the ability to go out there and create annual return on investments that are in the hundreds? Let me show you how. So what I'm going to be showing you is annualized versus ROI. Awesome. And I have to strip that off because I haven't given myself enough space. There. All right. Let me just quickly. So what we first of all going to look at is if we're trading a property, and Chris is going to be showing you guys a bunch of trades later. We're wanting to work off getting our money in the deal, adding value to the property, selling the property, making a profit, and moving on with the deal. We're going to, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to take some nice round numbers. I'm going to say that you get out there and you purchase a property for $500,000. And that $500,000 for the purpose of today and the purpose of time is including your renovation. Now, what you end up doing is you end up selling this property and making a profit of $50,000. What we've ended up with here is a 10% ROI. Now, I realize that there's a few other elements to it. There's taxes and a few other elements, and I will talk about that in a little while. But for the purpose of the exercise, we're able to go in there and buy a property 500, sell it and make a 50K profit. Selling will depend on our selling costs. But what about if this property that we transacted was actually done in only 3 months? Now we're looking at an annualized return on investment. So Nice and easy on this calculation. You make 10% in a year. If we do that in 3 months, we could just divide that by, multiply that by 4 to get our annualized return on investment. So annualized equals 40% ROI. Does everybody follow that? We've managed to take a property, make a $50,000 profit, which if it took us a year would make us a 10% return on investment, but a trade should be maximum 3 months, has made us a 40% return on investment over an annualized period. Hope that makes sense. But wait, it actually gets better, because the great thing is that we've actually gone and used a full money in the deal. We've accumulated and said that we are putting a full $500,000 into this trade. What about if we're going to use a little thing called the bank? And we're going to say now that we are going to go to the bank and they're going to give us for the purpose of nice and simple numbers, a 80% loan on this property. So we've now got an 80% LVR. Just for everyone's knowledge out there, LVR is determined by the Reserve Bank for the main banks. But what we see with some of the non-bank lenders or asset-based lenders, you will get different LVRs depending on that. And this is something that we'll go through in a lot more detail during the masterclass. But if you're able to get an 80% LVR, we now have a property that we're purchasing for $500,000, but we only need a 20% loan. Sorry, 20% deposit, my fault. That says deposit, by the way. So if we only need a 20% deposit, how much money are we needing to put into this deal? Should be a nice, easy calculation. We need to put in $100,000 deposit to make a $50,000 profit. Oh. Sorry about that. Profit. So we made a $50,000 profit. As you can see, you don't have to be able to write nicely to make money from property, because that just looks like a dog's breakfast right there. But we made a $100,000 deposit, a $50K profit, which has given us a 50% LVR. And then we get to annualize it. We need to work out how hard our money is working for us based on annualized basis. So we could then multiply that by 4. This property transaction is actually giving us a 200% return on investment. A 200% return on investment. Is that slightly better than the 1.2% that you get at the bank? I think so. Now, there is one more calculation that I'd like to share with you guys. And I think for anyone that's in the buy and hold space, this is a vital return on investment calculation. I usually only share this with some of our more advanced students in a lot more detail, but I'd like to share it with you guys today. The ROI in terms of how hard your money is working for you in terms of a renovation on a budget on a renovation. Now, this is what we're going to be working towards. We're going to be working towards a 15% ROI. We're working to a 15% return on investment based on how hard the money is returning us on in terms of the rent coming in. So if we go out there, and let me actually give you an example rather than try and explain this without giving you an example. So we go out there and we spend $10,000 on a reno. Nice, simple terms, we should be seeing a $1,500 rent increase. A $1,500 rent increase. This number here is based on an annual basis. Believe me, if it was a weekly basis, we would all be very, very happy, but our tenants probably would be fairly pissed off. So this here is on an annual basis, so you could work that out. It's a great way for when you're looking at a renovation that you've got lining up, that you're working out how much you're going to be looking at getting back for that money that you put into the deal. A little bit of a thing to consider here. This here is very much based on adding value to the property rather than maintenance. If you go and have to change a roof on a property, for example, then you're probably not going to get an increase in rent because the roof hasn't actually changed the aesthetics or the way that the property is rented out. So this is a number that you really want to consider, looking to get anywhere above 15%. When it comes to this, then you can start to look at, well, I could afford slightly more expensive money in order to get a return for it. What if you're paying 10% interest for the money that you're looking to get on this renovation? You're still making money through this property. Never mind the concept, and talking a lot about it today, that never mind the concept of adding the equity or the value to the property to ensure that it gives you the ability to go out there and leverage the equity into buying more property. Whew. Now, I get to talk about everybody's favorite question, favorite topic. And it seems like it's also the favorite topic of the media in terms of property. Everybody that decided to sell properties off the plan, and that is taxes. Who doesn't love talking about tax? I haven't even got to the fundamental number 2, and we're already talking about taxes. Now, in tax, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because this is a complex strategy, and I'm by no means an accountant, but I have a fairly solid understanding of what it is in terms of taxes. One of the things that is hugely beneficial, if we have a look on this side here, there you go, we have a look here at the amazing opportunity that we've got in New Zealand, the simplicity of our tax system. We have 2 taxes. We have income tax and we have GST. In Australia, you have essentially a large amount of taxes. Often in New Zealand, we have people confuse the bright line test with capital gains tax. Bright line is essentially just a number that is attached to a date range that is attached to a property to work out when you sell a property within a period, whether you will pay income tax on that property. I'm going to share with you something that most people find shocking. My goal every single year is to pay as much tax as possible. I want to pay as much tax as I possibly can. Isn't that a bit weird? But what about I'm going to be as tax efficient as possible, but I want to pay as much taxes as possible? Why would that be? Well, it's because that means I'm making more money. And for me, that gives me the freedom to be able to spend time with my kids. It gives me the freedom to do the things that I enjoy. It gives me the freedom to ensure that I can spend time with my family. That's what means the most to me. My time is precious. I want to be sure to make sure that I can spend it where I choose. The taxes are a very, very complex subject. During the Cashflow Masterclass, we do have a property tax specific accountant come in, and we will spend an hour talking about specifics around taxes in New Zealand. I think the key element, though, before you worry about taxes, worry about making some money, because that there is the concept we need to be focusing our attention on. Interesting thing that we've got now out of the last lockdown, as I get onto building wealth fundamental number 2. Out of the last lockdown, we saw property values increase by over 30%. Now that there, like I said earlier, has probably got a lot to do with the fact that a lot of money was printed in terms of ensuring that we can get the COVID recovery. The money printers were working overtime a lot of the time. But what we now see is that asset prices have grown so much. Latest news, the government's about to put another $41 billion into the economy in terms of a COVID recovery from our latest lockdowns. $41 billion. What do you see happening to asset prices when there is that amount of money being put out into the economy? For me, there's only one way house prices are going to continually go. And I said earlier in the presentation that I see houses continuing to grow, and I think this is a key indicator in terms of that. My advice to any of you out there going to purchase property, make sure there's land attached to it. Make sure there's land attached to it. We ain't going to be making any more high cash flowing properties that have land attached to it. All right, let's move on to building wealth number 2. Now, for me, the property strategy that you choose needs to align with what your goal is in terms of your property investing. If you can align your strategy to your goal, it's going to ensure that you can get to your goal so much quicker. This is what I've come up with in terms of the property investment strategy pyramid. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? We can go full screen on this one, Nimesh, so everybody can see it nice and clear. They don't need to see me for this one. So what I've done is I've broken it down into what I believe is the different levels of investing in property. Down the bottom at level E, we've got owning a home, which is very, very common within New Zealand and Australia, the concept of owning your own home. It's funny because many of the investors that we work with have decided that they're not going to own their own home and are rather going to go and spend their money on investing, ensure that they create a cash flow, ensure that they get the life that they deserve or the life that they want to live. For me, I enjoy owning my own home. I'm coming to you from my own home today, and that is definitely the lowest level of the investment strategy. The next level up we have is the buy and hold strategy. A nice simple buy and holds, like I was talking about before, we could be buying properties anywhere between, say, actually there's no price limit, but up, say $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000, but ensure that they are giving us the rent to ensure that we're getting the cash flow out of the property. We want to be making sure that our money is working for us by investing into these properties. Negatively gearing has to be the worst concept I've ever heard of since unsliced bread. It is ridiculous that you would buy property in terms of looking to lose money so you pay less taxes. Like I said before, I want to pay more taxes because I want to be making more money. The next level up we talk about is flipping and trading property, and Chris is going to go into a lot of detail on that very shortly. Then the exciting and the high cash flowing element in terms of buy and hold portfolio, when we look at multiple income properties. We're talking about properties that have multiple sources of income from one property. This is where we start to talk about huge cash flowing from single properties. There are properties in our portfolios that are cash flowing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a single property if you are able to purchase the right property or can look at transforming properties to the right type of property. I think it's important that you don't get hung up on what you're buying, but what you can create. That there is an educated investor. And then we get to the top of the pyramid, and there you can see Paul sitting at the top of the pyramid on the development side of things, and he will go into a bit more detail there. Developments are a powerful, powerful strategy, and I know that we're very excited about the development workshop that Paul is going to be running in the coming months for our advanced students, and showing us the level of income or the level of what you can do when it comes to developing. Potentially, you've even got property that you've purchased the last 4 or 5 years that's got land on it, and you're wanting to look to what you can do in your investment to ensure that you're maximizing the best use for that land that you own. And Paul will cover that in a lot more detail. Paul will be jumping into that in a minute. Let's have a look at the ways that we can add value to property. Option number one is a cosmetic renovation. This here is 101. We buy a property, we give it a bit of a spruce up. A term that's always made me laugh is you put lipstick on a pig. Essentially, we give it a lick of paint, we tidy it up, new carpets. Generally, we're changing things like vanities. We basically give it a cosmetic renovation, make it look nice and tidy, which in turn increases the value of the property and increases the rent on the property. We bring it up to standard. One of the things I really want to put across to you guys is we do not want to be slum landlords. We are here to create a great product for our tenants. I want my tenants to love living in their property. I want them to have the best possible experience living in their property. I'm a fan of the healthy home standards that have come in. I think it's brilliant. I think what this has done is it's got rid of all the investors that are not willing to bring their properties up to scratch for their tenants. So I'm a big fan of the healthy home standard. Number two in adding value is looking at structural renovations. Now we're looking at changing layouts within a property. We're looking at whether we can take a property and change the layout by adding another bedroom. A great way, again, to increase the yield on the property. A great way as well for us to ensure that we're getting the maximum value out of the property for our to ensure that we can continually leverage into the next one. The next option in adding value is extending to the property. Generally looking at maybe adding on a dwelling or an extension, let's say adding a bedroom on to the side of the property. Again, great way to add yield, great way to add value. Making sure though, whenever we're doing this, that we're working back to our 15%. Is our money working hard enough by going in and doing that renovation? Option number 4, we're talking about conversions. Generally, this is going, okay, well, we've got a garage that we can convert into a dwelling. One of the projects I've got on at the moment is a place that I own over in Napier, where we're taking a garage and converting it into a home. Pretty fortunate that the garage is 90 square meters, so I'm about to convert a 3-bedroom home out of that. That is going to then drive the cash flow, and as well as that, drive the value of that property there. Another way that we can add value, and often overlooked, is the change of titles. Potentially going from a cross lease to a freehold. There's elements to that which is important that you get yourself educated in that space to understand services and how that all looks in terms of a change of title. But what about leasehold into a freehold? Now we're starting to look at some serious equity gain. And I know a few students that have made a lot of great investments in terms of change of title. That's something you definitely want to consider. Adding dwellings. So now we're talking about granny flats. We're talking about adding on minor dwellings. We're talking about adding on a sleep out to the property. Again, like I've said for the many before, adding yield and adding value. Look at the properties with the concept of what can we do to add value to the property. Subdivisions, well, Paul is going to talk about that in a lot more detail really soon, so I'll leave that one to the man himself, Paul. And then obviously, as well as that, the consents. What about buying property that has the land attached to it, gaining resource consent, gaining building consent, and then moving the property on? Again, you've added value to that. There is so many ways that you can add value to it. I've got for you guys 8 here, and I've got another one that I'm going to share with you very shortly. There is so many ways that we can add value to rent, and add value to the value of the property to ensure that we're getting the best from it. The usage of the property, are we going under commercial to residential? There's a real need for that at the moment because of the fact that commercial is not as popular in terms of office spaces, potentially to residential, another consideration. And lastly, and something that I think is often overlooked, is just the value, just making sure that we've got the property up to market rent. If we can make sure that the property is rented at market price and the valuers are coming in and looking at where the yield sits in terms of valuation, that there again can ensure that we're getting the best valuation and gives us the ability to leverage. I'm going to talk about leverage a little bit later on after you hear from Chris and Paul. So it's very, very powerful. Guys, make sure you've written those 10 ways down in adding value. There is some seriously key information there that you want to take into any property transaction that you're going into, and consider these to ensure that you're getting the best for your money when you're jumping into valuing and renovating a property. And while you're at the moment of writing down, I'd like you to write down this one, please. Buy property. Buy as if property prices will never increase. Buy property as though it's never going to increase in value. That there is a mindset. If you can consider it an investment or going into an investment on the concept of the property is not going to increase in value, that's going to give you the ability to look at it in terms of adding value, almost building wealth, we could almost say, having a bit of a play on today's summit. So ensure that you go into any property transaction with the concept that you're not going to increase the value of the property. And that brings me to working with professionals to build wealth. Surround yourself with the most professional people that we can. Nims, can we come on me, please? Very important, guys, that when you go into any business that you surround yourself with the right team. Why should property be any different? You should have the best property accountants. Yes, I said property accountants. You should have the best property managers. You should have the best team around you, the best mentors to ensure that you can achieve your property financial goals, the financial goals that you deserve for you and your family when you're getting into investing in property. When it comes to professionals, and when I talk about professionals, I am absolutely in awe of this guy and I absolutely admire him. And I now get the opportunity to introduce my good friend and one hell of a speaker, in Paul Southey. Paul, are you there, my friend? Awesome. While we get Paul's audio, Paul, looks like you're muted there. While we get Paul's audio, I'm so excited to have Paul on today. Paul is such an exceptional investor and developer. We're also seeing that Paul will be running the developers workshop for some of our advanced students in a couple of months, and we're so excited to be jumping onto that one. I think there are some serious knowledge bombs going to be dropped at that one. But I think that's enough from me, Paul. You are looking so sharp, my friend. You make me you look terrible here. So I'm going to step aside, mute myself, and hand you guys over to the wonderful Paul Southey. Enjoy, Paul.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for that, Jono. You're too kind with your words there, and I'm just blessed and humbled to be a part of your team and be a part of the Wealth Mentor family. So what we'll do is this is the first time I've ever done this. So just for you out there watching and doing what we do, I've never done this in home. So we're at my house. We live in the lower part of the North Island in a place called Greytown. So we'll see how this goes. Hopefully, all the coaching that Jono's given us in the last few weeks, we should make a good presentation for you. So let's see how we go. So let's kick her into the guts. Where you go, fella? Let's start our little journey with what we do. So a little bit about Jeanette and I. So we joined the family of Wealth Mentor 4 years ago. We were, like everybody out there, we were students. And we realized that we needed to educate ourselves with property knowledge. And we come across Jono and the team and have been enjoying the journey to date. And we absolutely love it. And it's great to be around and be a part of that. And Jeanette and I both bring so much different skills to the table. And we're lucky enough now that we're able to give back. And our mantra now is just to give back. So we really, really enjoy just giving back and doing it. So, right, let's see if we can. Here we go. Technology works. Here we go. Right, the journey so far, team. So this Māori boy here standing in front of you was one of those kids that, as you do, you go to school to enjoy school. And I left school at 19 years of age. And for the older ones amongst us, they were School C days, and I got level 1. School C, or for you younger ones out there, NCA level 1. I was 19 when I left school, and the only reason I really went to school was to play rugby, play a bit of sports, and to chase a young lass around the school. Jeanette and I met at school. We've been together since we're 15, and we've really enjoyed this journey so far, and it was probably because of her motivation that's helped me create and do what I do. It's a real team. We do things together as a team. So it's been quite inspirational in that regard from there. I thought I was going to be really good at rugby. And my journey in life was to be a rugby player. But I blew my back out playing rugby at 20 years of age. And that sort of made me realize that the path I was on was not going to go anywhere. And when that happened, I realized I had to go and get a job. And with a kid that's got no qualifications at that stage of my life, I was like, there's actually nothing that I could do in that regard. So I got into the transport industry and got a job through a friend of the family and went driving trucks for 6 years and really enjoyed driving trucks. And then I hurt my back again. And then at the age of 30, I had another spinal operation. So I've had 2 of them so far. And when I hurt my back when I was driving, they said to me, well, Paul, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I love kids. I love sports because I love sports coaching. So they said to me, well, why don't you train as a teacher? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty different. So I said, oh, we'll give that a nudge. And so I went and retrained as a teacher. And I think that was one of the best things I ever did, was being part of the education system. You realized that you had something pretty special. And whether it was through coaching, through sports, or coaching life skills to the younger ones, all those sort of things, it was all about giving of your time and your knowledge and your skill set. And that was something I just hugely enjoyed doing that. And during that time as a teacher, we started to get the bug around renovating and building and doing things like that. So that's sort of where that little passion was born back in the day. And then one day we were over the hill. My brother was building a house, and I went with my brother to see this building company. And it was like, I walked in there and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And you guys are pretty amazing how you can now take that journey and help build houses and do that sort of stuff. And so we were standing there, and just out of tongue in cheek, I said to the guy, how do you do what you guys do? And he says, well, you do what I did, and you buy a franchise and you start a building company and go and build and do things like that. And I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I could give that a nudge. I've got a go-get-'em attitude, and I like to inspire people and do things like that. So I was like, oh yeah, let's give that a nudge. So 17 years ago, we brought a building company. And as you can see on the slides there, it's been a pretty cool journey up over the last 17 years. We've built 700 houses now in our local region. And we've got a team of 120 contractors that work with us. And it's inspiring to be able to say we have helped that many people into the community. And it wasn't around the money and doing what we were doing. It was around building a family. And all of our contractors have been with us a long time. And so that analogy of dreaming big, to go from going, well, let's start something, to now having what we do now, it's been absolutely amazing. But the key to that was surrounding myself with people who knew more than me. Being able to put your ego aside and be humble enough to go that I don't know all the answers. And that was quite important, to be able to sit there and go, I actually don't know all the answers, and I don't know everything. And I realized that because I'm not that smart at doing numbers and things like that, but I'm smart enough to know that if I can follow a plan, then I can make things happen. And by dreaming big, we've been able to go forth and do that. So now, as part of what we do there, I made that shift from being a business owner to an investor, because I was self-employed, do you remember, to start with. And then I made that shift from being an employee, self-employed, over to being a business owner. And then the key now, and this is what we're doing with you guys, is to move from being business owners into an investor. Because I've now realized that I can make more money out of investing than I can out of owning a building company. That's quite weird when you say it like that. It's quite weird now that I actually think about it. But I can make more money now as an investor. So that's why Jeanette and I love now being part of the team and helping to give back and teach you guys, because you can do it. And it's quite cool. So that's why we love to inspire people now. So as part of what we do with inspiring is getting out into the community. So in our local community, we're passionate about helping people. And so as being part of Master Builders, so I'm in Master Builders, the local president of Master Builders here. I also sit on the board at quite a high level with Master Builders. And through those connections, that's why we can keep ahead of what's happening out there in the marketplace. But locally, we go out into these careers days and we help educate the kids around, how in the industry, in the construction industry, you can grow and be so much better. And as you can see with the photos there, it's what we can do with those kiddies. And so I'm hugely passionate about how I can get women into our industry. And I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a picture of a young lady standing on a building site, and it says get an apprenticeship. So she's one of our ladies working with one of our teams. So it's been really cool there. And then the photo in the middle is of us talking at a local school. So we took one of our little 17-year-olds. He's now working with us. We took him back into school and to talk to his fellow peers around what he's finding being out in the workplace, and he absolutely loves it. And then the other things that we're starting to do is we're starting to create events for women in construction. We had an event last year, and we got 120 people along to that event. And it was just amazing seeing how many women we've got in the industry. We're quite blessed to have so many of them. And now that we're into supporting Māori and Pacifica people and getting them into the workplace. So it's quite a cool journey being part of the process there. the next slide that I've got up here is something that's quite close to my heart. And you can see me down there with a mask on. So everything that we do is about serving the greater good and serving others. So we volunteered to go into supermarkets to buy people's groceries and to pack them in and take them to their homes because they weren't able to come into the community. So that's just an example of what we're doing in the community there. As an industry leader, we get to go to a lot of conferences and do presentations. And so there's just a couple of examples how now I go to the national conferences and speak on what we're doing with diversity in the workplace around New Zealand and how we're encouraging everybody to do what they do. So it sort of gives you a bit of a background of what we're doing at that higher level now. And then obviously there's our passion. And I just take a moment looking at these slides and going, I just love my why and my passion around what I do and what Jeanette and I are doing. So with some of these photos here, the one in the middle is the main one for me. It's the homeless shelters. So we're now part of building shelters to get out there into the community. So that's really cool, really cool. And we've been actively supporting and sponsoring and planted over 2,000 trees now in our local community, and just bringing people together has been so cool, and sharing that knowledge. And as you can see with the different examples there, oh man, this just touches my soul. It's looking at that, just how we bring people together. And I think that's part of my Māori side. It is hugely important to me, and it's about how we can help people and support people. And so that's why we do what we do with Wealth Mentor in the family at Wealth Mentor. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what we're doing out there in the community and how we bring that knowledge to you guys. Like I said, we're at the master builder level. I now consult directly to 4 councils. We're involved with town planning. We're involved with town boundaries and where the next zoning is going to be. We're involved with weather planning for the next 10 and 20 years. So I do that at a local level, and at a central government level, I'm also working with them in terms of what's happening around the country and where the growth is happening, where infrastructure should be going. So that's the sort of knowledge that we're bringing back to you guys as students, and sharing that. And that's why we want you to come and be part of our team, so you can be part of that journey and learn the knowledge that we've got to then go on and create and do what your investing is. But what we all do, and why we do this, is our why. Oh, there it is. There's my why. You can see my family, and you can see my 2 beautiful girls, and it's all about us having fun, getting out there. And one of the things we all love to do is water skiing. Down on the bottom left there, that's what we do in our summer time. It's water skiing. We love to travel. We've got our pets on our farm here. And I just want to mention the book up in the top right-hand corner. It's all about education and educating yourselves all the time. But the key is you've got to make time to learn, and build upon your knowledge all the time. And for me, that's a little book that I use as my Bible. And it helps guide me in what I can do into the community, and get out there and do that. So that's our why. Whew, got to take a breath now. We're going to get into the good stuff. So, you know how we were talking about dreaming big, and doing something crazy? So for all you Aussies out there, you'd enjoy these photos. We decided to do something big, and we decided that we'd have a go at building a villa over in Bali. And it was a pretty huge goal, to go, well, let's get over there and have a go at it. And you've got to deal with the culture shock of dealing with another culture. They're a cash world. Dealing with people who had never picked up a hammer. So we said, well, let's go over there and help be a part of that. And if you can invest in Bali, by God, you can invest anywhere, in doing that. And as you can see there, that's our villa that we built. And there's the staff there, and we help with doing English with them. And we've won a few awards for doing it. And as part of that growing big, there's a photo of the first day when we come along on site and we were looking to buy somewhere. And that's a shot of when we brought it. That's what it looked like. And we stood there and went, well, we've got an idea and we've got a plan, and then we can execute it into something. And so it just gives you an idea that you can take it from that rubble that was there, and then there was the plans, there was the pool, and then go and build it. So it gives you an idea of what you can do there. Then you sort of sit there and go, well, if I can do it once, maybe I can replicate it. And so we decided we're going to do another one. So here's our second one that we've done over in Bali. And it just gives you an idea of the view. This one's a rural property. So once again, it's about the education, having a plan in place, and then being able to roll it over and redo it. And like I've mentioned the whole way through this, it's always about education. And so just on the slide there, I just want to do a little shout out to the people that have inspired me over the years. Jeanette and I have done a few of these courses. And my main one up there is Tony Robbins, as you can see. It's about having that mindset and being able to grow on it. And we've done many courses with Tony Robbins over the last 20 years and been able to grow with that sort of stuff. Keurig Ashley, another Australian speaker, Robert Kiyosaki, as you can see. And I just want to do a shout out to Marianne Quizell. She's our business coach, our life coach, and a coach that we do. So we're always touching base with her once a month and educating ourselves and going, well, how can we keep growing, and how can we keep growing as people and what we do there. And obviously the last name down there, you can all see that last name down there, young Jono. I just want to do a shout out to Jono and the team at Wealth Mentor. 4 years ago, like I was saying before, we sat where you were sitting. Yes, we'd done well in life, but we weren't property educated. And so we didn't have the real strategies around how to be able to do what we could do. And now that we've been part of the family, and we get inspired every day when we're on these courses or when we're part of it, we get inspired by the beginners right it down at this level. We get inspired by the stories that people bring. And then hopefully from our end, we're inspiring you guys for what we're doing. So it's about everybody working to be better. So this is why we encourage you guys to do lots of education, and just to be better in that regard. And it's all about that mindset. And I don't know how many of you out there have actually taken that time to write down, what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you go out and do what you do in your field of work or in your community or on the sports field? You know, is it the kids? Is it the family? Is it the freedom, like Jono was saying? Do you want financial freedom? Or is it the freedom to travel? Or is it the freedom to do stuff? You've got to have that right mindset for it. And if you can keep building on those layers, then every layer you get is like we say in a house. You have your good foundation, and then you build your walls around you, and you put your roof on top, and it's all part of that you stick inside your house. If you can do the courses that Wealth Mentor are doing and become part of this team, they will support you to help you grow. As everything that we've shown you, it's all about the growth and what you can do. Right, my time to inspire and show you some of the things that we've been doing. So here we go, team. Some of the amazing little things that we've done, some of the deals that we've done over the time, and some of the deals that we're doing now. So in this particular one here, we brought this little corner section here. It's a really ugly corner site there. And we just want to go through one of the ways on how we were able to create wealth. And historically, before we learned what we learned with John debt, but around having good debt. So as you can see here, little corner site, and we put the offer in it and got going on it. So In this particular property here, we went through and we've there's the pictures of what it looks like. It's a standard build. We always built it as a rental property, and you can see the fixtures and the fittings there of what we did. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And the goal with this strategy here was most people are into flips, but Jono, through this team, we learned about holding a home and being able to keep it and watch the growth in that. So as you can see through this one, that's what it cost us to build that particular property. So it was $425K to build that. That's a land and house. That was everything. Land, house, the landscaping, putting it all through there. Took a year to build that particular house. Just by the time you do your planning and your building and all that sort of stuff. As you can see in the photos there, we sourced some recycled products, put in a barn door and did everything like that. And as you can see with the valuation once we'd finished, look at that equity creation. It's huge at $455K. And this is what Jono is saying around being able to take that equity that you've gained within your properties and being able to use that and leverage to go and do something else. So this current property here is rented out at $550 a week. So we're gaining on terms of the rental property and having somebody in there, and then obviously the equity creation. So this is why we want you to come on board and join the investing family. One of the other things that you can do is a flip. So in short, that's where you're buying a property and flipping it quickly. And through one of the companies we have, it's called Gemstone Property Developments. And so that's where we go in and buy a property, buy land, build these houses on them, and then do a flip on them as you do. If you're going to be doing this sort of stuff and you want to use this strategy, make sure that you're looking at the covenants, because there's so many different covenants out there these days, and have a look on, is it restricting on the size of the property, the materials that it's built out of? Is there some sort of subdivision controls? Is there something around fencing that you need to be aware of? And all of this is good education. And it's being able to look at what's there in front of you and doing those statistics around that particular town, or having a look at around the area and saying, well, okay, if I buy this property, what is it going to sell for when I get into it? And like Jono was saying before, you never buy property on emotion. It's always brought on the numbers. And as you can see with this one, it's a reasonably good spec. You can see the bath there, nice bathroom, tile showers, 3-bed, 2-bath, your standard concept and what you want to do there. And so as part of this whole process, like we're saying to you guys there, we had a plan right from the start. We knew that it was going to be a new build. It was going to take us a year to do the construction. And when you're factoring your numbers, you've got to factor in your holding costs. And of course, you got to factor in when you're doing it as your company, you got to pay your GST and your profit there. So it's an amazing concept on how to do this whole process. And with the numbers there, we sold this one just prior to COVID. Just COVID last year. We sold this one just prior to COVID. If we had held it till after COVID, that number went from 975 to 1.2 within 6 months. It's just crazy what's happening out there at the moment. We've never seen the growth that is happening out there. But like you can see on that one, we grossed 225K on that. So our return on our investment there was 23%. And so we've just taken that money and we flip it again and we go and do another one. Now, one of the processes and one of the things that Jono was talking about before was making sure as part of your plan, you've got a power, we call them a power team, having a power team around you and making sure that the power team is better at something that you are. So obviously you've got your lawyers and your solicitors, your accountants and your builders and all that sort of stuff. but you've also got to have your insurance well and truly sorted beforehand. So 1 week before this house was ready to go onto the market, we had a water blowout in the kitchen, and we flooded the house. Absolutely flooded the house, and it done $60,000 worth of damage in that particular property. But because we'd had our power team on board and we got our insurances all sorted before we started, we were able to start the insurance claim process and get it fixed and get it done and get it back onto the market. And as you saw before, we were able to make the sale. So this is all part of that education and having that good plan in place with what you're wanting to do. So there you go. So you've seen two strategies there at the moment. Was the flip, and then the other one was the buy and hold, and to create the equity there. Then once you start getting a lot more money behind you and you've got a bit of power and a bit of grunt from that end, you can start looking at subdivisions. And this is a subdivision that we did. And you can see with the subdivision there, we've taken the two front houses and be able to get out the back there and build 5 out the back. So to be able to do your subdivision, you obviously engage your surveyors who will do all the prelim work for you, and your engineers. That's part of the team that you get on board. Obviously, during the process, you'll need a valuation. The banks all love valuations. Your lawyers will be doing the title searches. They'll be checking any issues with the land and things like that. And the other person that's going to be important as part of your team is the accountant, because your accountant will help set you up your structure and make sure that everything is together. So I'll just go over those important people again when you're starting to do this sort of stuff. Is you've got your accountant, you've got to have your funders, which is your banks or your lenders like that. You've got to have your valuations done. You've got to have your surveyors part of this, and also your real estate, because your real estates will be telling you what the numbers will be at the end of the process. And in general, when you're doing subdivisions at the moment, they do take 1 year to 2 years to do a small subdivision like that. And if you're really smart when you're looking at property, so we brought lot number 2 there, and so we were able to see the 2 properties at the back. We were like, oh yeah, we could get into that. But while we were there, we went next door to the owner of lot number 3, and we said, would they ever consider selling? And so they did. And that's how we were able to do that subdivision there and blow in through there. So I'll give you a bit of an idea of what it looked like at the start. So how we structured it, we were able to buy the first property on the left-hand side. And because it was a delayed settlement, and that meant that it was 3 months apart from being able to buy the first one to the second one, we were able to get in and do a complete renovation on the house. So as you can see on the house on the right-hand side, we went in, put the doors on, put the decks on. So that's called adding value to the property. And then because there was a delay for the titles to come through when we were doing the subdivision, we then rented that property out. And in time, the person that was renting that property ended up buying the property off us. So it's another strategy of what you can do. So it's all part of this journey on being able to be smart with what you're doing and how you do it. So as you can see with the photos there, all we did was go through and just tidy up the kitchen. We did a repaint throughout, added in some nice carpet. And then the key with it is that we furnished it well. So we went to a local company and got them in to give us some furnishings. And as you can see with the furnishings there, they made it colonial. So that's why when it came time to sell, people were able to walk in and they could visualize it. And they could go, oh, wow, there was something else there. So that was another way that we were able to add value, was by doing the interior fit out and using a local company. So one of the cool things around doing a subdivision and doing like that is obviously you can name the property. So I'm going to come in show you a photo down the end once we've done this part of how you can name it. But as part of this is having good relationships with the people out there in those power teams, and it's building the network of people. You know, whether you're talking, you need to work out when you're looking at a subdivision is to go, well, what's happening in the local region? Is there infrastructure coming in? Are the hospitals? Is there hospitals? Is there schooling? What's the councils doing? So the all the sort of items that you look at when you're doing your subdivisions, and the opportunities are everywhere out there. So what we've done with these particular subdivision is we've built rental properties. And these 4 rental properties that are all going in there, and the reason that we've built new ones in there is that there is going to be no maintenance on the properties for the next 10 years as a general rule of thumb. You can see there, they're only 100 square meters, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. So I'll just say that again, 3 bed, 1 bath. We didn't put a garage on. We didn't put a second bathroom on because it was all about getting your return on your investment. And as you know, with the in New Zealand, with what the government has said, they're helping with the subsidies around new builds. So this is why we've gone down the whole new build process there. And the beauty with having a new home is that you can get higher rents, and your lending is easier against a new build. So it gives you an idea there. So with this photo here, you can see we've got 2 of those homes are already finished there. And then we use transportables to go onto the 2 back. You can see the turnaround area there. There's now 2 transportable homes being put there. We've now just going through that process of finishing that all now. And in the top right-hand corner, you can see a house there, and there's a block of land behind it. The neighbour that had that property came to us and said, well, we don't want that block of land out the back. Would you be interested in buying it? And so we grabbed it, and we've now turned it from a 550 square metre section into a 1,400 square metre section. So that's the benefits of being smart and having a look at the different opportunities out there. And like we were saying before, you get to name it. So there's my daughter sitting there, young Trinity. And so that street's now named after her. So that's called Trinity Lane. So it's pretty cool, and it's pretty proud. But of course, we've got 2 daughters, and the other one is called Afina. And so this is another subdivision that we've done, and this is called Afina Drive. So it's very cool that you can start doing this sort of process. And I think you guys have all done really well listening to me talk. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit and give you a short video to have a look at that hopefully will inspire you around this whole education part. And if you don't want to watch the video, you can shoot off and have a quick toilet break or grab a bit of water. It's about 3 minutes long. And I think it shows the point of how we progress from being small and not knowing much and then going through. So I'm going to get my brother to Namish to bring up the video, and hopefully he can.
Find something you love to do. Do it every day. Be obsessed. Balance can come later. Use your imagination. Put pen to paper. Declare your intentions. Set small goals. Knock them off, set more goals.
You have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined.
Build confidence. Grow a deep belief. Outwork people. Play the long game. You don't have to be the chosen one. The secret is to build the resolve and spirit to enjoy the plateaus. The times when it doesn't feel like you're improving and you question why you're doing this. If you're patient, the plateaus will become springboards. Finally, never stop striving, reaching for your goals until you get there. But the truth is, even when you get there, even when you get here, standing on this stage, It's the striving, fighting, pushing yourself to the limit every day that you'll miss and you'll long for.
If you want to be a grocer or a general or a politician or a judge, you will invariably become it. That is your punishment. If you never know what you want to be, if you live what some might call the dynamic life, but I will call the artistic life, if each day you are unsure of who you are and what you know, you will never become anything, and that is your reward.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you.
How many of us, I wonder, can recall that childhood moment when we experienced happiness as a state of being, that single moment of untarnished joy, that moment when everything in our world, inside and out, was all right. Everything was all right.
Wow. How cool is that, people? How cool is that? Hopefully that's enough to inspire you to be able to say, okay, I've got to do something. I've got to get this shit moving. Get up off the ground, get standing, and get going. And as part of that, what I'm about to show you now is something that when you become part of our team and you come to the developers workshop that we're going to do, you're going to come and see these. You're going to come and see what we do every day. We're going to take you to Trinity Lane. We're going to take you to Athena Drive. We're going to show you all of that sort of stuff. So come be part of our team and come and see what we do here. And one of the things that we want to show you, hopefully it's finished by the time you get here, is how you can go into adding value to your properties. And that's if you've got your house on the front and you can add something at the back, whether it's a subdivision or another house. I'm going to show you something now, which is pretty cool. And I'm pretty proud of this. So here we go. Into transportables. These things here are called, these are little small transportables. They're bigger than a tiny house. These babies here are they vary in size from 40 squares up to about an 80 square meter home. And I've been onto site and seen these houses, and they are lifting them over the top of a house and putting them at the back. So you can see, you stand there and go, shit, they're lifting a whole small home over the top of another one with a crane to get onto site. And that's so cool. And as part of the weekend that we're going to do with you guys, is we're going to bring the owner of that company over to come and speak. And she's going to go through what she does as a company, how they make them in the factory. It's all made out of lightweight steel. And then show us the cool stuff that she's doing in there. And hopefully, like I say, by the time we do our developers course, I've got one on my site. How bloody cool is that? I'm going to take you through the one that's on my site. And so it gives you a bit of a visual there on what you're seeing now on screen. That's what they look like on the inside. And it's pretty cool that you can leverage your existing property and put something like that on the back of it. You got to remember, they're only 4 meters wide, so they're not very wide, and they're only 12 meters long for the one that we're doing. So it will fit quite comfortably onto the back of your property. And because they're made out of steel, they're really lightweight. Hence they can be, and I kid you not, I have seen it craned over a house. So it's bloody cool. So, and the good thing was that is they're consented. So it's coming out of the factory consented, and then you take it to your site and you'll get a consent to put it down onto this building consent, I'm meaning, to put it down on site, put it on poles, and then run the services back into your existing mains. So it's a low-cost project, but adds value to it. And it's so cool. So that particular one that we're doing, we paid $150K for it. We're going to be renting it out at $365 a week. Just saying that again. We've brought that one there, $150K, renting it out at $365. There's our annual, and there's our return on it. That's our yield on it, 12%. That's a great deal. And that means that the person that's in there is paying the mortgage on that particular property. So that's some of the things that you can do to add value onto the back of your properties. Or you go a little bit bigger and we get into a big transportable one. So what we're showing you here now, and when you come down to see us, is that if you've got a property, you can put it on the back of a truck and back it up your driveway and add it onto your property. Most of these particular building companies in New Zealand, you put down a deposit of 20% and then you don't pay for it until it is finished. So I'll just say that again. You put down a deposit of 20% to be able to buy the house and lock it in, and then you don't pay for it until it is finished, ready to leave that yard. It's consented. And the transport companies take care of the consents to plonk it onto your particular property. They organise everything. It's dropped down onto piles. When it's on site, all that you need to organise is your services. So that's like your septics, your waters, your power, and your phone. Put your driveway in, add the decking and the fencing, and within reason, you can have it rented out within 3 weeks. How mind-blowingly cool is that? So the photos that we've got up here is the one that we've backed into a site in Carterton. So there's my lovely wife. They actually let her have a go at working the machine and putting in the pile holes there. You can see the truck backing it in. So I don't know if you've never seen a transportable truck. See how the wheels independently can lift, they can turn sideways, and they can extend the back of that trailer out. So that trailer goes to 20 meters in length when they've got a house on it, and then it shrinks up to about 9 meters when it's just driving along the road. So it's very cool. And that's the sort of stuff that you can do when you're doing property like that. So here's another deal to give you an idea of what Jono was talking about before, is when you buy a property and it's got subdivisional potential, this is what you do with it. So there's the site there. And we looked at it and went, well, we've got subdivisional potential on the right-hand side where that tree is. And then down the back, we've got enough space there to be able to plonk another little tiny home or that small transportable that we were talking about before. The key with finding property at the moment is relationship. Having good relationships with real estate agents, good relationships with your funders and your accountant, all that. So your structure is already in place. So when these properties come up online or you're putting in the offers to buy them, you've already done all your homework, your due diligence, you are structurally sound, and then you can go yes, and you can move quickly to be able to get some numbers down and then to be able to buy these properties. Because that's the key at the moment, is having a good structure and a good plan in place ready to launch from. So that's the key. And that's why we love doing what we do. All right, so here we go. We'll show you the numbers on this particular property. So for this baby here, we paid $375K for that particular property. We did a renovation on it of $50K. So owed us in total $425K. That's pretty cool. And the valuation obviously come out there at $780K. So how this all worked, and I'm going to slow it down a little bit, was we knew straight away that we could add value because this property had been owned by older people and they had dogs running all through this particular property. It had dog hair everywhere. They hadn't renovated it in 40 years. It looked like garbage. And most people that were going in were like, oh no, that's too big a property. But because we had an idea and a plan and we knew a vision, we were able to go in and act quickly on it. Look at the equity that we were able to get out of that by just doing that so quickly. It's pretty amazing, eh? So we've taken $355,000 of equity out of that property. Sometimes you'd sit there and go, ching, ching. But then there was another option. Have a look at these numbers. This is going to blow your mind. This is why you do subdivisions and buy property that is subdividable. So for this particular property, lot number 1 with the tree on it there, to subdivide that property off, put the services in, put the driveways in, boundary fences, and do it all, is only $50,000. Look at what that land is available to sell to. We could sell that property tomorrow at $300,000 and we can make a profit of $250K off that one section there. Doesn't that blow your mind? But then because of what we were thinking, we could put that transportable. So the photo that I showed you just before with the transportable, that's going on to that particular site. So that house on the back of that truck landed was $300,000 plus the $50K for the subdivision, has a valuation at $750K. So we've made $400,000 profit on that one property. Don't forget, we also had 355 on lot number 2. This is what excites the shit out of us around when you can get land like that. And the coolest thing that we've just done now is that lot number 2 down the back, we're thinking about now subdividing that up and putting the next one down the back. So that's why subdivisional potential is so amazing. The next one I want to show you is another one that is live at the moment, and we're coming to the end, and I just want to say you guys have done so well. But this is why you do subdivisions. It's so exciting. So exciting. We purchased this particular block of land for $600K. We know that it's going to cost us $100,000 to do the development per section. So it'll cost us $800K to do the subdivision. Total cost in at 1.4. We estimate that we can sell each section at $280K. So that'll give us a profit of $840,000. So it just gives you an idea of the plan. It's bloody exciting. This is why we want you guys to come and learn this sort of stuff. We want to teach you this. We want to share this knowledge with you. We want to give you our power team for 2 days and sit down and ask these questions. But of course, as Jono was saying, you have a plan. Always have a plan, and you're thinking 1 to 2 steps in advance. So what happens if we go and build on these properties? So we could take those transportable houses that you saw before. Those particular ones are 3-bed, 2-bath. We build them for $300K. So if we build 8 of them, that'll allow us 2.4. We bought the land for $600. The development cost is $800. So the total money in for that particular project is 3.8. We know as a land and house package that we could sell each of those properties for $810,000. So that means if we sold them all, we could go and make $1.8 million profit on that particular subdivision. Just want to slow you down and just leave that there. This is why we want you to do subdivisions, or collectively start thinking about that sort of stuff. But wait, there's more. Have a look at the strategy at the bottom. If we can sell 3 or 4 of those land and house packages and keep the remaining lots, that will pay for everything on there for us. And then it means that we'll be able to put rental property people in there. So then we're servicing the market. We're helping the community because there are no rentals at the moment. We're helping our people. It's helping us to keep our money moving so we can then go on and do another one. So we signed some of the documents on this yesterday. So this is how live this is. This is why we want you to grow you. So you can help our people, help the community. At the same time, you also make quite a bit of money. So it's quite cool. in that regard. Hang in there, folks. You're doing well. I'm going to skip through a couple of things that I'm also doing out in the community is when you can start building houses on Māori land and doing papakainga housing. I think I'll save this for a whole nother time. But for those of you that are really community minded, I think I'd be quite prepared to offer up some time to Jono and say, look, if people are interested in learning more about papakainga housing, which means building on your ancestral land, I'd be prepared to sit down and do a Zoom meeting and go over this sort of stuff. This is what we're doing now out in the community. You can see Jeanette and I standing on site there. We built 6 houses out there in the community. And our goal is to get people into new homes, give them into nice, warm homes. It's just amazing. There's the marae there on the left-hand side. The next step from them now is that they've taken that marae and they've now renovated it. And it's through the strategies that I taught them that they were able to do this sort of stuff. So that's the inspiring stuff, people. That's what we want you to do. Come and be a part of our team. So the takeaways for you guys today is build your knowledge through property. Build it by doing that research, having those mentors, having those people out there. If you get inspired by somebody, do the research and go and learn it more. Build your team around you, like the team at Wealth Mentor and the family. Like I love going up to Auckland and catching up with the team. Like I said, they all inspire me to be able to help and do stuff. And I can't wait that when we can get back over to Aussie and come and be with our whānau over in Aussie and do it. Create your time. You have to create the time because through that and that knowledge, that'll create your freedom. And then you can go and do all this sort of stuff. And you must invest. You must invest. A small amount today will grow you dividends later on. And we are doing this education all the time to help grow. So we want you to be part of our team. Come and be part of what we do. Because the main thing that I've learned right throughout this whole journey is this. That my success is not achieved alone. But it's achieved collectively. Nimesh, if you can put the video camera back on to me to finish off for this particular part. Is everybody out there, you've heard me go on about this. You can't do it by yourself. Wrap that team and that support around you and come and be a part of it. This is why we do what we do. And I can't wait to see you guys at these courses that they run. You know, we've been doing it for a while now and we just love it. And what you're about to hear with Chris is just amazing. And that inspires me to keep going. And what you're seeing from Jono and the whole team out there, Kyron, Belinda, Helen, everybody, it's inspiring. So I'm going to hand over to the team to do what they're going to do to finish off. But just note down and just touch your heart there and go, oh, I love it. Just come and be a part of it. So thank you, Jono, and thank you to the team and everybody around there. And just thank you for letting me be a part of your team. And now I can't hear you, Jono.
Yeah. Hey, can you get me now? Cool. Paulie, you gave me goosebumps there, my friend. It is always inspiring listening to you speak. The way you just want all the best for everybody around is ever inspiring. I said it earlier today. I'm always in awe of your energy and your passion towards educating and helping people. So big ups to you, my friend. And I can't wait to get down to the developers workshop in just a few months. So thank you. And some awesome comments coming through, Paul, thanking you. So have a great next hour or so. And let's jump back into it. And I would like to share with you guys a really cool deal that's just recently settled that one of our students has done. Now, I talked about not buying off the plan, but having a plan. Now, this deal that I'm going to share with you, Nimesh, we can bring up slide on slide, please. This deal here is a rent by the room, purpose-built property that one of our students has recently done. This is really exciting. Purchase price we have there is $1.7 million. The cool thing about this property here is that our student purchases with a 10% deposit down with the remainder on completion. So what that meant is the time since deposit to completion, they got to enjoy all the growth that happened in their market. So putting down a deposit of 10%, saw it purchasing at link just in July this year. And I'd like to share with you some of the numbers on how this stacks up in terms of a cash flow positive new build property. Because there is those impressive cash flowing new build properties out there, but it's important that you understand how they all work. So here we go. This property here has a monthly income associated to it of $10,000 per year, just over $10,000. There's 5 en-suites on 2 houses, and they're getting around about $265 to $285 conservatively per room. It's got a mortgage of it at 1.36 million, and the mortgage locked in at 2.25%. But really, what you could look at is even at 1.7 million at 2.919%, you're still only paying $31,000 of interest. This property is creating a monthly cash flow of over $5,000. That's right. This property, after all expenses, is creating a cash flow of $5,000. Never mind the fact that there's been a huge equity gain by buying this property at the right time. So I want to come back to my concept. It is okay to buy off the plan, but if it is part of your plan. What we've seen with the recent government changes and the push towards new builds really has seen people go into that space. But if you're going into that space too early in your investing journey, the issue that you're going to face is that you won't be able to create the equity or the value in order to leverage and continually growing your portfolio. So it does have its time, but it's essential that you bring it in at the right time. And I think the right time, definitely, to bring on my good friend Chris is now. I'm so excited to have Chris joining us, and this is the first time that Chris will be joining us on a summit. And when we get to hear his journey, I think it's really, really exciting. So Nimesh, we can bring Chris on and make sure that we've got him nice and loud and clear. Chris, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh mate, it is so good to see you, and you're looking pretty slick, I must say. Did you just have a shave?
I did have a shave, and my daughter gave me a haircut yesterday, which was a nerve-wracking experience, but we got there.
Mate, you're committed to the cause. That's brilliant. So Chris, we're going to be talking through a few of your deals, but before we jump into that, I would like to just excuse myself for a second and bring up your journey and let you just talk through a little bit about your journey so far, what you've gone through in the last, I guess, well, it starts off when you leave school. So Nimesh, if we can bring that slide up, please. There we go.
Nice.
Go for it. Oh, Chris, sorry.
So yeah, left school at 18. I did manage to finish 7th form as it was back then, with the anticipation since I was about 13 of becoming a dairy farmer. Growing up on a dairy farm, that was my dream. Mm-hmm. And after doing that, I got the apprenticeship out of the way and then went over to London and realized that dairy farming might be a little lonely for me, and started trying to do the closest thing to dairy farming that you can do in London, which is landscaping. And that was not very either lucrative, and it was freezing over there to do that. And so moved onto a building site, which was even colder. And that was where I started my building journey as a labourer, shoveling, digging, you name it, all day. And that was good. Then came home and started my building apprenticeship, and that went well, nailed that, and then moved on to starting my own building company. When was that? I can't quite see the slide very well, Nimesh, but it was around
2018.
Yep. But before that, we started trading while I was working for another building company. The building company that I was working for were very inspirational. They were trading themselves and started me on that journey, but an uneducated journey. And so it was a little tricky to start with. But then you started Revive Build 2018 and haven't looked back. It's been great.
I mean, it's a brilliant journey, and I've seen the growth from you as an individual that you've gone through. I think a lot of that growth as well has been the transition of how you approach business, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to give you the floor, because I know that we always talk about what does wealth mean to everybody. Here's you. Do you want to talk a little bit about what wealth actually means for you as an individual?
Yeah, it's mainly based around family and time, getting to do what I love doing. Obviously, there's a little game fishing in there, plenty of family time and more family time. But it's all based around time, isn't it? Being wealthy gives you more time. And that just flows on to being able to do what you would like to do when you'd like to do
absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. And now, as you go through your journey, you've obviously gone through, and I saw there that you started trading, and then you mentioned the fact that you had your pre-education trading. So before you actually got yourself, to the level that you're a professional investor, you did a couple of trades. Do you want to talk about how they went?
Yeah, so there was a lot of hope in those trades, investing based on hope. They didn't go overly well. They weren't. One of them we lost on. Actually, a couple of them we lost on. But then, one of them we made, I think it was 20K on, which was at that time great, fantastic. We're wrapped. We lost similar amounts on others. But since getting educated, it changed the game completely. And
absolutely,
20K is not something we deal with anymore.
No, and I did mention at the start of the summit that the 3 deals that you're going to be sharing today have an average of around about $300,000 profit on each deal, which is hugely impressive. And I take my hat off to you, because you've really taken everything on board and gone into that really professional approach. In terms of this first deal that we're going to show you guys, Nimesh, sorry, I did just change the slides there. If we can bring the slide up, this deal here that you did. This was not something that was an easy deal, because we had some serious issues inside. I'll bring up the slide and people can have a wee nosy at what it looked like inside. Talk us through the inside of this property.
It was horrible. So firstly, it had a hoarder living in it. And secondly, it had a burst hot water cylinder, and the curtains had been removed to lay over the wet carpet so that he could move from the bedroom to the lounge and to the bathroom to have his cold showers. So it was strange. It was disgusting, to be honest with you. But, it was not sexy. And the whole deal wasn't sexy right up until it got sold. It wasn't a beautiful house. It didn't have heaps of street appeal. But it was a numbers game. And the numbers were easy to calculate on this one, because we had very, very similar properties sold for the same on the road.
Yeah. I mean, so that's obviously something you have to go into each transaction knowing the numbers. What are some of the key numbers that you'll go into any transaction that you do understanding?
Well, the most important number is what you're going to get out the other end. As Paul touched on earlier, the real estate agents that you're working with, they are the ones that give you those numbers, basically. They're going to bring up on the pulse numbers of what it's going to sell for out the other end, and then you just need to work back from there to what you're actually going to offer for the purchase price.
It's essential as well, obviously, that you have a clear idea of what you're looking to do to the property, and there's a hell of a transition from what you had before and after. You've staged this property. Do you find that staging really changes the view for a lot of the buyers that are coming into your properties?
Oh, you don't do it without staging it. You don't sell them without staging it, because it is a game changer. Even when we look at properties and they're finished, before they get staged, and then the stages come through, it's like, wow, okay, it changes. It just gives you a good visual of where you can actually put furniture and everything along those lines. And the whole feel of the property changes from being numb to having a life.
I like that. I like the way you've done that. That's awesome. I mean, again, we've got before and afters. The next question I've got for you: how do you decide what level of renovation you'll do with the properties that you're transactioning on? Here we've got a really nice kitchen. What are some of the factors you take into account for that?
Yeah, that's a really important thing to touch on, Jono. Depends on the area. You can also work in with your agents on it. This is a nice area, but it is not. It has a ceiling, as in it's only going to sell for so much. There's other areas in Auckland you can work in where there isn't so much of a ceiling, and you can go nice. This kitchen is not an expensive kitchen. It looks nice, but it is cheap and cheerful because of the area that it is based in.
Absolutely. And working to, where your ROI is going to come at the back end. I mean, here's some bathroom photos, not pretty whatsoever, and a lot of cleaning to create a really beautiful product at the back end. So take my hat off to you. Let's jump into the numbers. So this here is definitely out of the 3 deals that we're going to be sharing on the lower price on the profit, but you are able to make a really great profit in only 4 months. Talk us through that in terms of your decision making as a business owner.
Being able to turn it around quickly is crucial for that sort of a deal, and also being able to turn it around quickly because sorry, what am I trying to say? So turning it around quickly increases obviously my ROI per annum, which is great, and no council involved on that one, and so that sped the whole process up phenomenally. We're able to settle and go straight into working on it. No waiting for plans, no waiting for consents. Just go for it.
Now, in terms of your transition, because this deal was probably a little bit earlier on when you went into that professional trading side, the transition that you've gone through, and I really want you to touch on things that you've gone through personally, from going as a labourer or even going through a building apprenticeship to now being at a stage where you have 2 full teams running trades for yourself. What has been that transition, essentially going from the left-hand side of the quadrant to the right-hand side of the quadrant that you've gone through?
It's not easy. It's easy on paper, but it's not easy to actually wrap your head around. Going to work and earning, $1 per hour rate is relatively straightforward. It's safe. There's not a lot of risk involved. In saying that, what we're doing now, there's also, because of the education we've got, there's not a lot of risk involved in that either. But moving from changing size of the quadrant, it was tricky because instead of going to work for an hourly rate per hour, you're going and you're having meetings with people trying to raise capital. You're hunting for properties. You're not. It's so different. It's hard to explain. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
Absolutely. And I think when we start to look at some of these deals, there's no doubt that you would change it. So this one here, obviously a reclad, that's now something that you specialize in, but that does scare a lot of people as well. But again, in terms of a reclad contingency, that must be something that you really have to take into account. Talk us through what contingency is, or how you go about establishing contingency when you're working on a project.
That's a good question. The contingency's a tricky one to do on the reclads because you really don't know what you're going to find. So one, they have to be profitable, and you also need to build in there a very solid contingency. Usually work on about 10% as a contingency, and if it blows over that 10%, you need to have enough profit in there to make sure that it's all going to work out fine in the end.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's have a look at some of these before and after photos, some really cool images as I click through them. Anything that you'd like to touch on as I click through these photos?
When we first bought the property, it had brand new joinery. Someone had, instead of recladding, they just put new windows in. And so that was a great plus. That saved us about 30K. This property also had no code of compliance, which is a different kettle of fish altogether. You're not just tidying the property up and recladding, you actually need to bring it up to the code. And if it was built far off what the code is now, you need to bring everything up to it, from handrails to fixings for the roof and everything like that. And so the no CCC is a tricky one to work through, but it means that you can buy them cheaper.
Absolutely, and you obviously did, because there is some serious numbers. Talk us through making almost $500,000 worth of profit on a trade. Impressive numbers right there.
This property was bought just after the first lockdown, when everybody was sort of up in the air about what's going to happen in the market. Is it going to flop? Is it going to crank? And I think I actually called you on this one, Jono, before we purchased. And I was like, Jono, what's the crystal ball telling you, mate? Is it safe? And as you touched on earlier, don't buy hoping for the market to lift. So we based our purchase price based on, okay, if it stays stagnant and doesn't move up or down, this is what we need to buy it for. And so that's what we did. Rebuild cost came in roughly as what we had forecast. I think it was within about $5,000. So that was really good for a reclad. But yeah, the profit, because we were lucky enough to watch the market move up over the year that we held that, we got to reap the rewards on that one.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about some serious profit there. It's really impressive, which you've emulated again on another deal. And I say that we're only sharing 3 because you have multiple deals on the go at the same time. Another reclad. This one here, though, had quite a bit of work on the inside to be done.
Yes, this one was probably one of the most major renovations we've done. It's basically a new house. We tore most of the house apart to design out the faulty areas of it being plaster and leaking. So when you do a reclad, you can't just take the plaster off and put the weatherboards on or whatever you choose to clad it in. You have to actually design the house again so that it doesn't leak. It had a very small master bedroom upstairs, Juliet balconies, and we changed all of that, and we put Louvertech systems in, everything like that, and ended up being a stunning property. And the owner is now my lawyer, so she's great. It was a great transaction.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And a nice little profit there on that one as well. I mean, $250,000. So in terms of this, and I've purposely broken down some of the numbers from this deal. Here are some of the phenomenal numbers that we saw when you actually broke down the building costs. How do you go about, first of all, breaking down building costs, but then also outlining your timeline to do the renovation? Building timelines not necessarily on such a big deal, but some of the smaller deals even. How do you outline that in your preparation for a deal?
Yeah, gotcha. So myself having a building background, it's a lot easier. If I didn't have the building background that I do, I would be working with your chosen builder to work on the timeline for the deal. They'll have a gut feeling about how long it's going to take. This one, I had a gut feeling it was about 6 months. It took about 6 months to do it, from when we started swinging hammers to when we put it on the market. That's how we work out the timelines. As for budget, because of the building background, again, I have a gut feeling as to how much it's going to cost. Once again, no building background, you need to work with a builder to figure out where the budget's going to sit for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my favorite one there is the bits and bobs fund of $100,000. What is a bits and bobs fund that you need $100,000 for?
Well, as you move through a renovation of this size, you obviously have your contingency and you know how much the roof's going to cost, the windows are going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. But there's always stuff that you change as you go along, right? And the bits and bobs fund is for the things that we decided to change as we went along. And it was all sorts of things, from putting a louver system on that wasn't originally on. Were we going to deck the backyard over the top or replace the pavers out the back? We decided not to, but the bits and bobs fund was there to do that if we chose to. And that came into working with our agents as to whether we did that or not.
Awesome. And just one last thing, Chris, from you, before I get on to continuing my 5 steps to building wealth. In terms of you as an individual, you've transitioned to this becoming a professional trader. What are some tips that you'd give to people in terms of that may be looking at moving to the space of trading property professionally, or even getting into trading property to create profit?
Okay. It's been touched on a few times. It's a numbers game. Okay. Figure out the numbers, and that's how you work out if the deals work. Okay. Don't do it based on a 10% profit. You need to make decent money out of the jobs. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. The risk gets too high. The teams around you are probably the most important thing to have. Your network, whether it be accountants, lawyers, probably one of my most important people in my network are the agents that we work with. They bring deals to us. They sell our deals out the other end. And the relationship is, priceless. Probably just people skills is one of the most important things to touch on. When you're trading, you need to have good people skills. So know how, like you, Jono, make friends with people, have a good chat. And also getting educated is, once again, it's been touched on so many times, and I can't tell you what my ROI on spending that money on getting educated is. It is massive. Yeah. And once again, priceless.
Mate, thank you so much. And I've got a little slide here, and I want to know how long it's going to be before we see you on this article that was done by the New Zealand Property Investor magazine on the most prolific flippers in New Zealand. You must be, to be fair, your profit margins are slightly bigger than a lot of these people, but I don't see it too long before we see your name added to this list.
That'll be nice. Yeah. We'll see how long we go.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for being so inspiring, and congratulations for all you've achieved. I think it goes without saying that it's awesome, it's inspiring, it's brilliant. So many people will take a lot out of learning from you, and how far you've come in such a short period of time. Take my hat off to you, and thanks for giving up the time on a Saturday to come and inspire so many people.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Have a good afternoon. See you, mate.
See ya.
Bye. Oh, I love talking about some of those deals that Chris has done. Seeing some of those profit margins are sensational. Now, I'd like to continue on with my 5 fundamentals to building wealth, and I'd like to get onto the concept of leverage and the concept of understanding leverage. If we can bring up the slide, please, Nimesh, that would be fantastic. So when we start to understand leverage, we can start to take equity that we create, use the concepts of building wealth to ensure that we continually grow our portfolio. So if we've got a situation where you've got a property that has increased in value by any stretch, now we're talking about some of those development deals that Paul has done, we're talking about some of those trades that Chris did. If Chris was to hold them and look to take that equity that he's created and then go into another deal, we're going to start to see him being able to buy more and more properties. If you look at the numbers on what I did before, we had the ability to use $160,000 of equity. What about if we took that money and actually put it into another property? And let's say that the banks on an investment property is only going to give you a 60% loan to value ratio. If you work that out, 160 divided by 0.6, can somebody work that out for me? And how much you can now go and buy an investment property just on the equity that's sitting there doing nothing. Equity is essentially doing nothing except saving you 2.5% on your loan. Rather, let's use that money to get out there and invest. How are we going with typing in those numbers? They haven't come up for me yet, but I'm sure we're going to get a number really soon to see how much you guys can actually go out there and buy with that equity that you've got within a property. A term that I love to see. Oh, clicker went a bit crazy there. Apologies. It is going nuts. Oh, I didn't even touch it. Okay, give me a second. Sorry, team. There we go. That's the one I was after. I changed my thinking. It changed my life. This concept is really important. You saw with Chris, when he started to change the way that he thought about things, the way that he approached things, he was able to change his life. If you can take the concept that we've taught you about equity creation, think of it this way. We have the ability to go buy below value, add perceived value, and create an equity gain. That equity gain is so powerful in order to us to either go and buy the next property or in order to sell and make a profit. When you establish your buyers and how you are going to be going through your investment journey, we want to establish what that equity gain is going to be, that is your minimum number. You're going to work to a percentage to ensure that you're creating this right amount of equity gain to ensure that your portfolio can continually grow and continually build. No one has done that better in the recent time. Actually, lots of people have done it better, but I have to share with you the legendary Torb, who's been able to build a portfolio over $6 million by using this simple concept. Torb is actually from Australia. You can see they're making an annual cash flow of $150,000. All right, here you've got a breakdown of his portfolio. Impressive numbers, making over $150,000 of passive cash flow. The thing I love about Torb as well is he loves to come over to New Zealand and fly fish. He's like, I've got a passive portfolio. I'm going to jump on a plane and head over to New Zealand and do some fly fishing. And normally he jumps in and pops into the office while he's here checking out his portfolio. I've got a 30-second clip of Torb, and when I come back, I'm going to talk to you guys about the cash flow mastery. Nims, if we can bring up Torb for 30 seconds, please, team.
Hi, my name is Torb Stoppe, live in Australia. I got a residential portfolio down in Gisborne worth about $6 million. Gives me a passive cash flow of about $12,500 a month. I have been able to give my job up. I do consulting, but mostly to keep me busy. Allows me to come here, do some fly fishing. Allows me to go home to my home country, Sweden, where my daughter lives. To spend some time with her without having to worry about work. So it's been a great ride.
Able to, in just a short period of time, his first purchase in New Zealand was mid-2018. He's built up a passive cash flow portfolio of $150,000 per year and an equity gain of about $2.5 million. That is unheard of. His first step was the cash flow masterclass. It is essential that you understand the concept of moving from the left side to the right side to start to grow into a professional property investor. Start to educate yourself and start to grow as an individual. Number 5 on my building wealth is expand your knowledge. I can't stress it enough. It is essential. You guys have obviously decided that by being here for the summit that you want to continually grow your knowledge. Property is a great vehicle in terms of that. We've got a statistic that 75% of the 100 on the 100 rich list of the world has made their money through property or property businesses. The cool thing as well, when you look at property, is it can be broken down into 3 different asset classes. Within property, you have the ability to buy general property. We're talking buy and hold property. We're talking about the fact that you can trade property. You can also look to set up a business around it. We're talking about property development, property management. There's so many avenues that you can look at when you have a look at property in these different investment classes. And then there's shares, when you start to step up the next level and look to bring on the public property or syndicates, joint ventures, which is obviously something that Chris has done as he's stepped up. Property offers you the ability to be all 3. Wealth Mentor, we're very proud of everything that we do and seeing so many of the amazing changes that we make in so many people's lives. There's a lot of articles there in terms of the Property Investor magazine, but I'd like you guys to open up the most recent Property Investor magazine and read this article here on one of our mentors, Belinda Beatty. Amazing story how she took a motel and transformed it into a residential property. We're talking about creating over $250,000 in passive cash flow in her portfolio. This deal alone made $100,000 of passive cash flow on her portfolio, as well as adding over $1 million worth of equity. Belinda will be one of the key speakers at the Cash Flow Masterclass, where we will be presenting later this month. It is going to be an amazing event. You really want to catch and learn the story that Belinda is going to be sharing with you guys at the Cash Flow Masterclass. When you jump in the Cash Flow Masterclass, you jump and become part of the family. Those dates again for the Cash Flow Masterclass that we have coming up. There is going to be a link that'll be dropped into the chat now for those of you, those early adopters, those ones that are like, yep, well, there's no point in me waiting around any longer. I need to be at that Cash Flow Masterclass learning from these guys. I cannot stress enough. It was my first step and it really has changed my life. The link will be going in the chat now. Make sure you head along. But while you're filling out your paperwork to reserve your spot, please listen up, because here's what the Cash Flow Masterclass will look like. Day 1 is all about the foundations of a property business. We're going to show you in more detail the numbers. I've really just touched on the basics, numbers, calculations. We're going to go into a lot more detail and show you guys exactly how you can ensure that your property portfolio is running all based on the numbers. It is vital. We're going to teach you the buying rules, understanding how you should be going into property transactions and having a clear understanding. Market analysis. I would love to show you guys exactly some of the details as to how we analyze a market, some of the key data in terms of where we're seeing infrastructure spent and where we should be looking to invest. We spend about an hour just on how and where we should be investing. The other thing that we do on day one of the Cashflow Masterclass, we show you how to make money out of thin air. And that's no joke. We will show you how you can beat the banks and make money out of thin air at lunchtime on day one of the Cashflow Masterclass. At the end of the day, it's about the mindset. We want to transition you guys from the left side to the right side. Day two, we really start to get into a lot of the strategies that are involved in property investing. We get into some of the more intricate details like understanding boarding houses, multi-income properties, trading properties. I spend an hour teaching you how you can trade property professionally. It really is an opportunity to transform your business. There's something else I'm going to offer you guys, and make sure you write this one down, because I am willing to, at lunchtime on day two, if you are not happy with what you've got out of the masterclass, if you feel like you have not got way more value than we have, what you have put down invested to come and join us in the masterclass, I will give you your money back. I will give you your money back. There's a money back guarantee on it. And I know that sounds infomercial-like, but I am that confident in the product that we put forward that I am willing to do that. We do one of the coolest things on day two, and that is the cash flow property game. I'm giving no more away because it is our favorite part of the weekend. You will literally get to, or am I giving too much away? You will literally get to, buy property in a game. It is going to be a lot of fun. You do not want to miss that game that we run into. Day three, we start to pull it all together and we show you how it all works in terms of building your business. How do we actually run a successful property business? We'll also get into some more in-depth strategies like lease options and some of the more detailed strategies that really take things to a whole other level, including developments. We will start to look at negotiations and how we can actually work on our personal strategy. The great thing is you're going to get the opportunity to do a one-on-one consultation with one of us. I will sit down with you. My team will sit down with you. Belinda, Kyron will sit down with you one-on-one and work through your personal situation to ensure that we can show you guys the best way for you to create the wealth and the financial security that you deserve for you and your family. Tax. Everybody loves tax. We will spend at least an hour on taxes. I have a professional property tax accountant coming in to have a look at taxes. You want to be the most tax efficient. You also want to make sure you're protecting yourselves. It is going to be an element that we will go through in a lot more detail. Again, the link is in the chat for you guys that are ready to take the step and join us at the Cashflow Masterclass. We're talking about 3 full days dedicated to you. Let's have a look at what's involved in the Cashflow Masterclass. I've already told you that it's only under $500 a day. Let's have a look at what you get involved. You get the one-on-one consultation that is going to be included in it. That there is going to be time that you get to spend with one of our mentors. Online education portal, you'll get access to our portal. It's included in it. You will also be getting a lifetime event support. Any questions you have, I've already put it in there. Office at wealthmentor.co.nz. There will be a support for you there on any of your questions or deals that you are working on currently. You'll get workbook, strategy call. We will have a one-on-one strategy call leading up to the masterclass to help you guys through your situation. And as I click on there, we have it at under $500 a day, but it even gets better. And again, like I said, this is going to sound like a little bit of an infomercial, but you get to bring your friend for free. So this here is for 2 people. So we're talking about you and your partner. They don't have to be your life partner. They could be an investing partner. They could be a friend. We're now talking about a sensational opportunity. And it's even better because today only, it wouldn't be fair with me not to offer you an extra $500 off for those of you that are going to take action today. There is a link that is going to go in the chat. The link to use, the code to use on the link is going to be BW500. BW500. That's going to take an extra $500 off your ticket today. So now we're talking under $1,000. Under $1,000. That's less than $500 each person for 3 full days with multi-millionaire investors. People that are there to try and support you and show you a different way. Please, you need to make sure that you take this opportunity. it is going to be an opportunity to change your financial future. It's time to act now. Take advantage of that opportunity. Now, for those of you that have any questions or concerns, or you want to talk through anything in terms of what it is at the Cashflow Masterclass, or for some of you that are more advanced investors and you're potentially interested in joining Paul at the Developers Workshop, which I will be attending it myself, I can't wait for that. There is a link going to be going in the chat as well. This link here is an opportunity for you to book a call with one of my team. When you book a call with one of the team, we will be able to work through anything that you have questions in terms of the masterclass. If you book that call today, we will secure and we will continually hold the price of $997 for you for 2 tickets today. So that link will be in the chat for you as well. That price will be held if you book that call today. If you have any questions in terms of the Developers Workshop, for those of you that are those advanced investors, there's also that link. It'll be in the chat for you now. Guys, the masterclass really is a sensational standpoint. It's where I started my investing. It's where so many people, you've seen what it's done for Paul, for Chris. Why not you next? It's time to make that decision. You need to decide what path you want to go on. Are you going to go along and just to keep going with what you've always done, all alone? That's a bit sad, isn't it? Or is it time to take action? Is it time to invest in yourself? A time to grow? A time to take your investing to the whole nother level? Once again, we've got links that have gone in the chat. The team will keep popping in there. We've got links that you can book a call with one of my team. There's also the option for you guys that are going to be joining us at the Cashflow Masterclass. If the dates don't work for you, no problem at all. We do have other options, and you can book a call with one of the team and they can talk you through other date options for the Cashflow Masterclass. I think that it is an absolute no-brainer. I believe in this product wholeheartedly, and again, I am willing to offer you that money back guarantee at lunchtime on Saturday for you guys that decide to join us at the Cashflow Masterclass. Once again, guys, your time is now. Links are in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us today at the Building Wealth Summit. It has been such a massive pleasure for me to stand here and present to you guys. The energy in the chat has been brilliant. A massive thank you to Paul and Chris. You guys have been brilliant. If you guys want to connect in with these sort of people in your network, then you know what to do. Click the link, fill out the paperwork, and we will see you at the Cashflow Masterclass. Now, most importantly, guys, for all of you out there, always make sure that you stay awesome. Have a good day. Goodbye.